Welcome to Rebuilding Rob, the podcast, the show that is dedicated to the relentless pursuit of building a more perfect man. I am your host, your favorite blogger turned podcaster. My name is Rob. Yeah, that's right. You just stumbled onto another blogger who thinks he can turn on a microphone and make a podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing the art of moving slowly. And contrary to that title, we'll get through this one in about 10 minutes or so. Stay tuned. Last time we talked about the 100% policy and refusing to accept breadcrumbs. Today is going to be about the pace of that work. There's a quote by Martin Luther King Jr., but this quote actually carries the weight of everything that I'm doing right now. King had said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. In American culture, we're taught that if you aren't flying, if you aren't hitting that American dream on a set schedule, then you're failing. We call it keeping up with the Joneses. Let's say your neighbor gets a 50-inch TV, so you naturally need to get a 60-inch TV. Your peer at work gets the promotion by age 30, and you're feeling behind because you're 31. I'm here to tell you, this is all bullshit. In fact, the American dream itself is bullshit. That's why we call it a dream. It's not real. You know, as an English teacher, I've always leaned into the realism movement. Usually the stuff around the 1920s. Authors like F. Scott Fitzgerald and Arthur Miller were telling us decades ago that the dream is often a trap. The Joneses timeline is a sprint that leads to burnout. The art of moving slowly is about choosing a different pace. Option C. It's about being realistic with yourself. Today, I want to talk about the art of moving slowly. We live in a world that demands now, but some of the most important things in my life, and most likely yours, take time, and a lot of it. For me, that lesson started over 20 years ago with a career path that felt like I was going nowhere, until it finally led me exactly where I wanted to be. Once I got out of high school, I spent nearly 3 years just in community college because I didn't know what I wanted to be. I knew that I needed to go to school. I knew that I needed to get some kind of degree, so I figured I'd work on some of my core classes until I figured something out. Once I got the 2-year associate's degree, I transferred to a 4-year major university. When I was there, I changed my major more times than I care to count. Eventually, I realized that I belonged in English literature. I'd found that those are the classes that I enjoyed most, and I kept taking them over and over again. So it was kind of pointing me in a direction. Once I got my bachelor's, I went on to post-bachelor school to get my teaching certification. I got that, and I actually managed to student teach in my local school district, the very school district that I went to myself as a kid. I wanted a job there. It seemed like a great place. It seemed like a great community, but it didn't happen. Instead, I waited. I bided my time. I did put my feelers out for some other places, including schools out of state, when I finally got a call from South Carolina. I was agonizing over the decision. I was hoping that my home school district would call me at the last minute and swoop in before I packed up my things to move down south. That didn't happen. So, X1 and I uprooted ourselves. We moved away from our families, our entire support system, and we started our careers in South Carolina. And to be honest with you, I kind of sucked at it. And for those of you who might be starting a career, or maybe even starting a new career, I've got news for you. Unless you're some kind of wunderkind, you're usually going to suck for the first 5 years at your job because you're still learning your job on the fly. So I taught in South Carolina for 3 years. During the second and third year, I had actually failed my annual teacher evaluations. Because of that, my teaching certificate wouldn't get renewed in South Carolina, and because of that, my school district there would not offer me a job for the following year. I was crushed. I felt like this was my dream, the thing I wanted to do for a career after it took me so long to figure it out, and it had just gotten pulled out from underneath me. I knocked around for a little bit, worked some part-time jobs, worked some full-time jobs, but about 3 years after I lost my teaching job in South Carolina, my marriage ended. I moved back to Michigan with my tail tucked between my legs. I was underemployed. And again, as bad as losing my job in teaching was, this was devastating. Leaving my son in South Carolina with his mom / my now ex-wife was the hardest thing I ever have or ever will do in my life. So eventually, once I was back in Michigan, I got back in school. I got recertified, and I started teaching again, pretty much from the ground up. At first, I worked in some charter schools, then a couple private schools, and then finally, I made my way into the local inner city school district. I taught there for 5 years, and to be honest, it totally exceeded any expectations I had. Granted, I was probably setting the bar pretty low. I knew where I was going and what the neighborhoods were like, but it was great. I ended up switching schools after 5 years. I was going to be working further in the city. I wasn't really looking forward to that, and that was about the time that opportunity finally knocked. I got offered a job in my local school district, the one that I grew up in, and so I took it. I've been there for 3 years now, and it took me about 20 years to get to exactly where I wanted to be. If I had to compare my crawl to somebody else's flight, I would have walked away a long time ago. But because I embraced the art of moving slowly without even realizing it, I'm here now with seniority, with perspective, and a 100% policy that I didn't have back then. I'm not just placing in the race, I'm winning it on my own terms. The art of moving slowly applies to my personal life too. With X2, we had mad chemistry, and we poured gasoline on a flare until it burned out. With Veronica, things are different. We're nurturing a spark. We're building a foundation instead of a fire. It's a different pace, and for the first time, I'm at peace with it. I'm just taking every day as it comes. There's that quote often attributed to Tony Robbins. We overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 10. When I look back at the last decade of my life, the change is massive, but I didn't see it day to day. I only saw it because I didn't stop moving. So look back, not on yesterday, but at 10 years ago. If you're feeling like you're spinning your tires, remember, the most permanent things in my life didn't happen in a flash. My career took 20 years. My peace took 2 scorched earth breakups and the courage to stop pouring gasoline on flares. Today, I'm not walking on eggshells. I'm not micromanaging my words to fit a timeline. I'm just trusting the crawl. Don't let the Joneses dictate your speed. They're running a race with no finish line. You're building an empire, one intentional step at a time. Give yourself the grace to move slowly. Just don't stop moving. Today is day 897 on the road to 1,000 days. This episode of Rebuilding Rob, the podcast, was produced, edited, written, and hosted by me. I'm honored you spent time with me today. You can find me at rebuildingrob.com. Until next time, be audacious, be bold, be brave, and be strong enough to be gentle. And remember, the rebuild never ends. Bye, everybody.